Before we start today's journey back in time, I have to tell you something that might come as a shock. I'm not British.
No!
I know, I don't have an accent, so you're rightly surprised, but believe me, I'm not British. I've lived in Scotland for quite a few years now, and I'm grateful for everything this country has given me, so I promise one day I will become a proper British citizen. Now that we addressed the elephant in the room, let's get into our time machine.
Nellie the elephant back to jump, you say goodbye to the circus. Off she went with a trump. Now Nellie the elephant back to jump and tumble up in the jungle. Off she went with a trump.
In 1954, Britain begins work on its top-secret military program that could potentially reach targets in the Soviet Union, an intermediate range of ballistic missile, the Blue Streak. The rocket would carry a nuclear warhead, and each of the 60 planned Blue Streak missiles would be tested at the Spade Atom rocket establishment. Excuse me, I think you'll find it's pronounced Spedidum, duh. Yeah, no, it's not. These tested launchers would then be placed in underground silos across East England. Doubt about its military effectiveness due to Britain being a small island and thus the underground silos leaving the local population vulnerable to military attacks makes the government alter the missiles into launch vehicles with Australia's assistance. The plan is to use Woomera as a testing range due to the lack of suitable launch sites in Britain. Blue Streak is used as the first stage in the Europa missions led by the European Launcher Development Organization, or ELDO, with France and Germany providing the second and third stages. Despite successful tests, the program is cancelled 6 years later due to high costs, including having to ship the rocket around the world for test launches. Britain then tries to collaborate with Canada and Australia to build Black Prince, a 3-stage launch vehicle with Blue Streak as its first stage. The collaboration never happens, so Britain offers the missile to the ELDO project. Simultaneously, Britain is also developing a sounding rocket, Black Knight, to test warhead designs on Blue Streak. Black Knight utilized high-test peroxide, or HTP, as an oxidizer, which is a concentrated form of hydrogen peroxide. The violently combustible HTP that was first used in experimental German rocket engines simplified Black Knight's gamma engines. By the 1960s, Britain becomes a leading power of HTP propulsion. In April 1962, a US-built satellite, Ariel 1, is launched, carrying British experiments. The Ariel series were Britain's first satellites launched by NASA on Delta and solid-fueled Scout rockets between 1962 and 1979. Ariels 1 and 2 were built in the US and carried British experiments, while 3 and 4 were completely British-built. These spacecraft studied galactic radio signals along with the properties of the Earth's ionosphere. Ariels 5 and 6 were 2 of the earliest X-ray astronomy satellites. And what is that? Oh! One of my space dogs wanted to say hi. So, say hi. Hi. Okay, maybe not. Oh, okay. Bye-bye, Zara. Nice having you. Yes, that's right. Mama loves you. In 1964, the Royal Aircraft Establishment proposes the development of Black Arrow. The Black Arrow program for a small and cheap satellite launch vehicle is approved by the government the same year but suffers multiple delays in funding. Black Arrow was a 13-meter tall, 3-stage rocket. Its first stage had a single 8-chambered engine, while the third stage comprised of a solid rocket motor. Test launches begin in 1969 with little success as the first test ends in failure due to a steering problem. Although the second test launch 8 months later is successful, the first attempt to launch a satellite fails to reach orbit when the second stage shuts down early. The British government finally cancels the project in July of 1971, although 3 months later the last flight of Black Arrow successfully orbits Britain's Prospero satellite. Britain became the first country to abandon its satellite launch capability after successfully launching their own spacecraft on board of their own rocket. This meant that Britain would rely on other countries, such as the USA, to launch its satellites. The country's involvement in the space industry becomes merely a limited role within ESA and satellite data analysis. How short Britain's rocket history is, you might think. But think again. There are numerous launch vehicle startups like Skyrora and Orbex, and multiple launch sites being built as we speak. If you ask me, the UK was in hibernation but got up fresh, fit and rested with more energy than ever before to continue adding to the merely 7 years of rocket history I covered earlier. Next week, I'm going to take you back to the Soviet Union to discover how those guys became so amazing in space history. I hope you'll join me. Subscribe and ad astra.
Welcome to my